this time, oh, I'm not going to leave this cash up here. No one would come on and speak.
Oh, I
I don't know which one of you gentlemen wants to go first, but the floor is yours. We got a mic here that's on, and you can use it or not. If you use it, you got to hold it real close. I got it, Sheriff.
Thanks for being here, Sheriff.
Can everyone hear me all right?
Yep.
Speak at this volume. All right. First of all, it's an honor for me to be here. It's an honor for my partner, Bill Bailey, to be here. He is our public information officer for our office. So I know I get a small margin of time, but I want to address the role of the PIO, which is what we call Bill. Bill also has additional duties. He supervises our support unit staff, which helps keep us running. But a while back, when we were going through some personnel issues, which you all may remember, which I know you'll all be happy to know, we took care of business there, and we have gotten those concluded. So now we just have our normal everyday personnel issues like any other organization or business, and we're happy to have that. But we identified the fact that no one is going to market us. As you saw in the media or read in the newspaper, they weren't marketing us. They were telling the story, and now I have a biased opinion on the sheriff's office, of course, but telling the story a little bit one-sided, and not all the information was getting out. And so we took a look at it, and we decided, look, we need to have somebody that markets your sheriff's office. We work for you. You all are my bosses, and I want you all to have an opportunity to know what we're doing. And Bill has just done a phenomenal job with it, with our Facebook, our Twitter account, Instagram, website, just trying to share that information. So I encourage you all to follow us on Facebook. I don't Facebook, and I look at our Facebook page. So there's a lot of great information on there, which leads me to our presentation today. And it's an honor for us to do it. So if you have questions, please raise your hand. But before I start, can I please just get a show of hands, veterans in the room, folks who have served our country. I want to say a huge thank you. Thank you very much. And your sheriff's office is a token of our appreciation. So would you please do me a favor and come let me have the opportunity to shake your hand before you leave today. I'd like to give you a symbol of our thanks. It's poker chip, man, but yeah, challenge coin. We don't gamble. We give them away free. No. But a quick thank you. So one of my jobs as your sheriff is I am responsible for emergency management, along with several other mandatory services that the state of Oregon says the sheriff will perform. The sheriff's the only one that performs them. And there's a lot of different facets to your sheriff's office. One of those is emergency management. And so I'll give a quick overview because we have a lot of materials that are available for you to look into this a little bit more. But I want to just say a few things up front. First of all, we do a lot of talking about the Cascadia subduction zone and how that would affect us on this side of the mountain. And what that is a massive earthquake where there would be tidal waves that would come about that. And this occurs roughly every 300 years or so from a historical perspective, or what the geologists and the scientists have said. So we're well within that time frame of when something like that might occur. And as some of you might know, just maybe a week or two back, they had a 6.2-ish earthquake deep off the Oregon coast. And what we try and do is it's our job to doom and gloom and prepare, right? Think of the worst, hope for the best type situation. But if you plan and think of the worst, you will be better prepared to handle most anything that comes your way. And there's a few things that you can do. But Cascadia subduction zone, our role would be as a hub for refugees that might be fleeing that area. Because I've been to a few different talks, and what they believe is maybe the ground might be liquefied and there'd be mass destruction on the other side of the hill. And so this seems to be a good place to have that hub. We would be the closest place. We have an airport, and so some of our plans follow along that line. Now, something that you have to keep in mind, because I always say this, you prepare for it, and I say, well, what if we put some of the things we prepare for over here, and it just happens to be a little minuscule fault line that's connected to the whole big deal, and you lose that. And that's why I say you prepare and you plan, and it makes you more resilient. Portland has even gone to the extremes of having discussions at the state government level about having some kind of food pod or food storage. But where that leads you in the conversation is, okay, how are you going to secure those? How will you provide security for those? Because I'm here to tell you, I'm sure most of you have had psychology in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. People have needs, and food, water, clothing, shelter, the most basic need. And folks will do a lot of things for those basic needs. So, where we come in as your sheriff's office, we have a manual that's put together, and there's a sheet, because it's a several-page manual with good information on it. And it talks about 72-hour kits, building a kit that will last you for a month, and doing it over a period of 40 weeks, because there's an investment to this process. And so we want it to be palatable for most anyone. But this kit is available on our website, and there's a sheet of paper up here that tells you how to get to, excuse me, not the kit, the guide is available on our website. You can print it out, and it gives you a lot of great information, some of which we'll talk about today. So let's talk about real quick about the 72-hour kit and the idea of a kit that is there for a month. So when you're thinking about it, I always say, hey, think about when you're cold or hungry, what do you wish you would have had? Okay, that's one way to kind of look at it. Right? Now, we travel, and what I hear someone had a good idea over there, it sounded like, but we travel over the mountain. And so when we travel, if it's winter time, I'm not going to wear shorts or flip-flops. And I'm probably going to make sure I have a coat or a sweatshirt in the car, because I might have to change a tire. Now, my kids didn't necessarily think that way, right? Flip-flops, t-shirt, we're ready to go. What if the car breaks down, or, God forbid you go over the embankment, or these are things you want to think about instead of thinking, wow, we're going to have a nice, calm 3-hour trip over the hill and everything's going to be just fine. Now, the chances are that's what's going to happen. But the one time that doesn't occur, I can guarantee you're going to wish you had a blanket. You're going to wish you had a little bit of food with you, which milk bones, believe it or not, are a good idea to have in there, because you're only going to eat them in case of an emergency. And this is a true story, you guys. My kids have eaten milk bones, so I know they're okay. But you have some milk bones in your kit in there, and that way if you have a pet, you can take care of them too. And you want to make sure you have water, because you don't know how long you're going to be there. You don't know what kind of a state or a physical state you'll be in if something like that happens. And so you want to be prepared. And then, of course, you may or may not be able to rely on a cell phone out there. And you want to be able to care for yourself, at least for a length of time, which is also why you fill your tank before you head off to any trip, so that you make sure you have plenty of fuel should something terrible happen. 72-hour kit is not that much different. They figure you need about 1 gallon of water per day per person. So there are 6 folks in our family. And so when I start thinking about, okay, 1 gallon of water a day, all right, well, you can buy the plastic gallons, right? So I need 6 gallons of water a day. And then if you're looking at 3 days, I need 18 gallons of water just for that 3-day period. Or you can get water filtration systems, right? You can buy the fancy straws so you can go drink water wherever. And some of the things that you need to remember if there's a prolonged event is you have a water heater in your house, which you're going to need to make sure it's okay to drink. You have toilet water in the tank. I think I'd have to be pretty hard up to go to the bowl, but you got there you go. But you've got to be thinking a little bit outside the box. But the kit talks about some of that. But if you're someone that has just a lot of willpower, and you can keep high protein snacks like beef jerky or things like nuts or cans of tuna or cans of chicken or canned goods around, those are a huge help in the kit. But there's other things that you want to have in your kit. Some rope, fire starter, just different things, all right? And remember, the water, although I wouldn't say it's perishable, you want to change it out ever so often. You don't want to, you'd like to have it in a dark place, but you'll get some of those pointers here. So, one thing that I want to discuss, and there's also some pamphlets about a guide for emergency management and being prepared. But there's something called a community response team, community emergency response team. John was involved with it. This is something that our office does. We find it's very valuable, and in a nutshell, you go out and you learn how to take care of the community during an emergency or a natural disaster. And I'll tell you, we have these types of disasters around here, or we have had come close to some of those disasters. You all remember, we've had wildfires where we've evacuated the city of Sisters twice in a decade. You all might recall that. We have situations where ice dams and buildup can cause flooding. We watched Tumalo Creek quite a bit, where we could get some flood damage there. And you might remember 7 years ago when cold weather knocked out power to the community of Sisters out west for nearly a week. I think it was 4 or 5 days. We had our emergency operations center up and running. So those are the types of events you want to be prepared for. How are you going to get heat? Not everybody has a wood stove anymore. I don't. I have a gas fireplace, and so I'm going to want to make sure we've got some family members, or I've got some place to seek shelter. And so you just really want to kind of make sure you're aware of those things. You don't want all perishable goods, so that if the power goes out, your perishable goods are going to go bad, and that's why canned goods, dried goods, things like that. Even some of the freeze-dried things, but then you're having to add water. Just things to keep in mind, and you can do what's best for you. If I were to stock up on real food that people ate all the time, I have 4 kids, so my 72-hour kit would be gone in 72 minutes. So it's useless to get real food, right? But get things that can go in a package and you can probably hide. Freeze-dried jerky is probably not high up on their list of things to go grab. The other reason that CERT is such an asset to our community is because it teaches folks to care for themselves, care for their neighbors, and basically can be a satellite emergency management function. The more folks that know how to do something, the better off a community is going to be. Because here's what I'm going to guarantee you. I know as your sheriff that I want to make sure our teammates come to work. So I'm well aware that we need to put plans in place on being able to care for our teammates and their families. You saw that in Hurricane Katrina. And it's got to be a delicate balance, right? Because it's taxpayer money. But we've looked into this a little bit about sleeping type arrangements, food, making sure we have generators. We have a couple of big generators at our office. But you've got to take care of the folks you work with and their families, because if they're worried about having to do that, they're not going to come to work. And I can't say that I would blame them. I mean, you want to take care of your family. So we are in plans and talks and processes to do that. And I'm excited about where that would lead us. One last thing I want to talk about, and then I'll open it up for questions. I probably used up all my time. I need to talk faster. One last thing is wildland fire is a real threat to us here. We got fairly lucky this fire season. I would say we had a lot of smoke, but not much of it was due to the fires we had, and I count that as a win. Now, I will tell you, I don't think we're totally out of it. If you remember, the Pole Creek fire occurred during the early parts of September about 6-7 years ago, and we didn't, we were hoping we were done with it. So we're not totally done with it, but the cooler temperatures and more moisture in the air will help us. But so wildland fire, if you live in, and I always say any area, I mean, your neighbor's house or neighbor's car can catch fire at any time. So you want to do some things to protect your home, but what we want you to do is do some things to your home that will buy you some time until either the fire service can get there or you can get out of there, because a lot of you know the car fire in Redding. Now, we don't experience those kind of terrible fires all the time. But fires can create their own weather system, dry things out. It's just basically a storm in and of itself, depending on the fuels. The car fire, you know, the tragedy of the great-grandmother and her 2 great-grandchildren, they didn't have a lot of time to get out of there. And so when we give you the notice of evacuation, please trust that I make those decisions myself. I take into account all of the information from the experts, the information from the fire service, the information from our folks, because I believe in surrounding yourselves with smart people. And then I make that decision myself. So please know I don't make that lightly, because I know, and former Commissioner Allen will tell you, he's been in the mix of some of them, but we understand that when we give you the directive to be either level 3, get ready, which is a nice easy level, make sure the fuels are cleared out from your house and just be prepared to go. Level 2, you're going to be going at a moment's notice, and then level 1, go. We recommend you go. I can't force you to go. All right, we'll never force anybody from their home. But we will give you the best information that we have possible, and I will have balanced it. How much time we need, that's why it's different in every instance. What's the fire behavior? What type of resources do we have available for us? What's the escape plan from the area we're trying to evacuate? How many folks do we have to evacuate? Do we have folks with special needs we need to evacuate? And we mix that all into a lump, and I give us that amount of time plus a little cushion. And we take it very seriously. And we adjust our evacuation areas all the time. So please know when we say this is the level of notice that we want you to be on, it has been well thought out. And I'll just give you just some quick pointers. The property can be replaced. If you have photographs are difficult to replace, or the china, or consider keeping some things in your safety deposit box. Consider getting copies of your photographs, or put it on a tetrabyte what is it? Terabyte. It's a really huge hard drive. You can't even fill it up. I have one. Put it on a terabyte hard drive, keep it in your safe deposit box, and then update it every so often so your pictures are always on there. But these are just some things to think about. Your birth certificates, the medication you need. If you've got medication that you really need and you can't go without, inhalers, make sure you've got that where you know the location of that, because sometimes we'll tell you, depending on the fire start, Cloverdale is a prime, Cloverdale and Plainview, what are the chances of that? Just weeks apart. And destroyed homes. What, we have 2 and 3 homes destroyed in each of those fires, which is a tragedy, but I'm going to tell you, from my standpoint, no one's hurt or killed, so I consider that a win. And the fire service did a great job keeping that to a minimum. You had air tankers that I got out and I felt like I could reach out and touch them. I fought wildland firefighters, and it's an eerie sight to see. But we had those folks moments notice. Neighbor's house caught fire. Those folks were at a level 1 like that. They, she made it out, but and then we had to go back in and I worked with great people. One of my teammates, Deputy Sheriff out west, Shane Zook, went in and got the Cocker Spaniel and the tortoise. So it wasn't like Backdraft movie. There weren't barrels blowing up around the guy. But I mean, he went in and got the animals, and I loved it. And the lady gave an interview to Z21. It was probably just as good as yours. But that's it in a nutshell. I know that was a lot of information all at once, but I want to leave some time for questions. Sir,
you started out by saying, if I heard you correctly, something about an earthquake and water. What could we reasonably expect that there wouldn't be a tidal wave?
No. You forgot the dinosaurs. Dinosaurs will be resurrected. That's part of the doom and gloom. No. So when you have an earthquake, there's a tendency to create tidal waves. So what you would have is they think the ground will liquefy in the Willamette Valley, and I can't tell you, they talk Columbia River to down the range quite a ways. So they think the ground will liquefy, and a good portion of the population will be in a bad spot. Now, they also believe, and this is all depending on who you talk to, okay? I'm no expert. I'm sharing information from the talks that I've heard. They believe that there'll be tidal waves that will have been created off the coast because of those earthquakes. And so that's why when you go to the beach, you see the tsunami warnings, and you see where the high ground is and where to get to those areas. So that's the correlation there. I'll be right there. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so the earthquake is in the valley. Is it off the coast in the valley? And what does that due for our faults over here.
So now, I don't know where the epicenter of the earthquake is, but this Cascadia, it's gonna be around the Cascadia subduction zone. There's maps that show you. I don't know that there's a map, there might be a map in the bigger binder, but if you Google it, you can hear from the experts. I'm no expert. But it's going to have these potential events that are triggered by the Cascadia subduction zone. And then don't forget, we have the bulge in South Cicero that faces Lane County. That's the hope, faces Lane County.
If you want to learn a little more about the Cascadia event, we did a video hosted by the mayor a few years ago that goes into all the detail on it.
Excellent.
We'll repost it on our website.
That is excellent.
So I'm a little unclear about everybody says we're gonna be the hub.
Right.
Year or two ago, I was closer to this kind of stuff. I understood FEMA was coming here. FEMA was gonna use our airport, not people who are leaving these abandoned properties in Willamette Valley, because the airport's gonna be
Right.
down.
Two different things, Ian, you're right.
Yeah.
The emergency response, but also we're expecting the refugees from those damaged areas.
They're gonna
And you don't know what it looked like.
drive over the damaged
Well,
roads.
we don't know.
The
We don't
bridges
know
will
if
go
you-
down.
Well,
roads will
right.
crash.
You don't know if all the highways are gonna be gone, you won't have cars, and that's part of the thing that you try and
Yeah.
imagine. But one thing I can tell you is, no one might show up, and you might get 100,000 people that show up.
Like the eclipse.
Yeah, well, there you go. Now, I would say that was from good messaging, making sure.
I mean, we had zero problems,
Right.
because you prepared for a huge problem, and we had zero problems.
I agree
Good
with you
job.
100%. Well, thank you. I work with great people. All I did was make sure they could do their job, but thank you. I was very impressed with their response as well. All agencies, that was 3 tiers, federal, state, local.
I was just gonna add on your comment about the eclipse. The eclipse turned into a, event for our emergency crews in Central Oregon, because there wasn't, other than Prineville and Madras, there wasn't a whole lot of traffic problems. But they were able to test everything we have, and they all had to work together, which is helping, I think, today, because they've become more of a team than they used to be. This is my territory, this is my budget. I haven't seen that in Central Oregon for quite a while. Just an example of the plane dropping the fire retardant, those guys respond to something like it's in their backyard. And you have to, because we only have so many resources. And if the fire was to take off, if they didn't jump on it like they're doing, it could, another doom and boom, it'd be a disaster.
Right, and the apocalypse, or whatever they were calling it, we ran 2 major fires out of there, out of that multi-agency coordination center. So it was a real blessing.
Good job. We have trains that go through our community, and many of them will carry very explosive materials. What is the preparation that your department has done in case there's a major explosion, and an oil problem that occurred in Montreal outside? How are you ready to deal with that?
Columbia River, right, train derailment. So the very first thing is training and education, right? So we have hazmat training, we have close working relationship with the hazmat teams, which we don't have a local hazmat team like we used to have. But we treat all those emergency incidents the same. The first thing, you've got to keep the first responders safe, okay? And lock the situation down in order to respond to it. And then you get your experts coming in. But locking the scene down so that you can save lives, that's your priority. And so that's what we would be training. And then we also have tabletop drills that exercise these different events, because even though they might be different events, you're going to get the benefit of training out of an active shooter tabletop drill, just like you would a Cascadia subduction zone tabletop drill.
Can you talk some more about what a tabletop exercise is?
So a tabletop exercise is this. I like to think of it as kind of like the game of Monopoly or Life. You do it on a tabletop and you say, hey, here's the exercise. You have different representatives depending the size of the drill. Let's say it's a bigger drill because we report to FEMA, and part of our emergency management grant, we do these drills. So you involve federal, local, and state. And then you will involve a lot of different disciplines. So for city water, sewer, power companies will show up, Cascade Natural Gas, you know, you name it, they come to the table and they say, okay, here's what we would do, here's the resources we have. And some things, just like you mentioned, Gary, it's like, let's say Cascade Natural Gas, hey, we got a backhoe, we'll lend it to the cause. And so that's what a tabletop drill is. It's just on paper. Now, some drills will do in actuality, like a practical drill. Like we did the active shooter out in Sisters, we've done active shooter in the Pine. We combined with partners and did active shooter at Central Oregon Community College, and that's where you actually go on scene and you'll do some of those role play situations in a scenario like that.
Okay, just make a comment that one of the questions, what happens if there's a subduction earthquake? One of the issues that might affect us, where are you gonna get your gasoline?
Yeah, right, 'cause it all comes-
Because most of it comes out of the valley.
Right.
And if the valley can't produce it or bring it in, because the ships can't come down the river because the bridge in Longview's dropped into the water, where are we gonna get it?
And see, that's an excellent question. The first thing I always say to people, they probably think I'm a real down there, is like, what if the Redmond Airport's located on one of these mini fault lines that nobody knew was connected to whatever and it falls into the canyon? I mean, that's why I say you plan and prepare as best you can, and it just helps you respond. But what we assume is a lot of our supplies would come out of Boise, Idaho, but they're not used to supplying this area. So you have to give them time to ramp up. Now, we've had some of the discussions for fuel and things like that, but you're still looking at, I think 2 weeks, is that what we settled on? It'd probably take 2 weeks, 18 days, something like that, to have them ramp up to be able to deliver.
Yeah, because the gasoline storage in Portland's on the Willamette River in St. John's area, so it'd be a mess.
But I will tell you, Gary touched on it, and I want to share this. We are so blessed in Oregon, and I'll be even more specific and say we are so blessed in this county to have the working relationship that we have with state and local government, because it's one of these things where we work together, and you think about it. Look, they volunteer here, their kids go to school here, they shop with us, and so why wouldn't we have that great working relationship? And I don't let red tape get in our way either. So we had a fire start by Shevlin. It was just the year after the Two Bulls fire. It was a little early in the season, but it was doing all right, and it was picking up steam, and it was spotted on the other side of Shevlin Park Road, and there was a little smoke up at the top, and there was a Taylor Northwest lowboy that had come with a cat, because I'm going to tell you something. The Taylor family, they are about community out of Bend, and they've been here for a long time, and they always just come to help, because they came Johnny on the spot because they had a game in the fight during the Two Bulls, right? That was a lot of area for them, and they brought that down, and he said, hey, can we help? And I said, Jack, do you mind getting that cat off there and go up and put a line around that spot fire? And he did. Now, normally, if you do something like that without going the proper protocol, you can get in trouble. But I figured, well, if I was going to go to jail, I'd probably be in my own jail, and probably treat me pretty well there. So, but it's just about getting things done and having it make sense. And you have a community member who's willing to do that for you. So we do it, and that was not an issue.
Well, I tell the fire department guys all the time, is diesel's cheap. If you have to call for reinforcement, it's too late. So roll as many as you can. Jeff Fuller did it the other day on a fire and off Northwest Way. He was calling everybody. Yeah. And they kept it down. I think we lost one house and a little damage to the next house.
Right.
But the Forest Service was there.
Well, and that was where the fire started too. You only lost the residents where the fire started. But that's great training. So I tell you this, another reason to roll that stuff is that's good training. That's good exposure. That's worth the investment to have groups work together, so that when there is the something, you already have some of that practice. That's a great illustration. But anything else? I want to be respectful of your time.
Thank you.
You all are always.